title of this video is Hell Tortuous, a response to Michael Jones of Inspiring Philosophy. I want to test my audio capture for Streamyard before I try again with Patrick Hines. I want to redo the Patrick Hines video, but I just want to do a relatively short stream on one of Inspiring Philosophy's shorts. And the title of Inspiring Philosophy's short is Does God Torture People in Hell? And of course the answer to this is yes. Yes, of course he tortures people in hell. But with Inspiring Philosophy, the obvious answer is never the correct one, in his opinion. One of the reasons why I critique Michael Jones so much is because I cannot get over the chutzpah of this fellow, his brazen cheek. And so let us first and foremost go over the doctrine of hell as we see it in the New Testament. In the New Testament, hell is described as an unending fire. In hell there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. In hell there is a great thirst. When Dives, the rich man, is in hell, he is so thirsty that he wants Lazarus to dip a pinky finger in water and drop a drop of water onto his tongue. So in hell there are in hell there is great thirst, gnashing of teeth. That's the medical term for this, I think, is bruxism, bruxism, and bruxism is usually caused by stress. So in hell, the people there are extremely distressed. Jesus talks about slaves being beaten with stripes. So there's probably going to be corporal punishment in hell. Okay, so that's the biblical view. The biblical view shows hell as quite a torturous place. There's fire, there is thirst, there is distress. But after the Bible came the Roman Catholic Church, and I want to distinguish between the Roman Catholic Church before Vatican II. Vatican II happened from 1962 to 1965, and in that council certain doctrines were de-emphasized or softened. But prior to Vatican II, we had the pre-conciliar Roman Catholic Church, and it lasted from, let's say, Constantine to Pius XII. And so that's 1500 years. So, and Inspiring Philosophy thinks that Catholics are Christians. And so for 1500 years, the majority of Christians held to the preconciliar Roman Catholic view of hell. And what is the preconciliar Roman Catholic view of hell? Well, thankfully we've got AI to tell us. Some people say that the internet killed Christianity, and this is true, but AI, in my opinion, drives the nails into its coffin. And so this is from the Catechism of the Council of Trent. It was released in the 16th century, and this is how we are to understand hell from the majority Christian religion, which lasted from about the 4th century to 1958. And this religion, which Michael Jones of Inspiring Philosophy concedes is Christian. It describes hell as a most loathsome and dark prison in which the souls of the damned are tormented with the unclean spirits in eternal and inextinguishable fire. Now, look at that. The word torment. Torment is synonymous with torture. So, according to the 1570 Roman Catechism, or thereabouts, it was released about that time. This is what hell is. It is a place of torture, it is a place of real fire. And if we go to bad news about Christianity, there is a book, a pre-conciliar Catholic book released in 1855, which discusses the pre-conciliar Catholic view of hell. And there is some really disturbing imagery in this book. Father John Furness describes a child waking up in hell and his brain is boiling inside his skull. His brain is like a teapot. It's really disturbing imagery, and it's no wonder why such deranged people go from fantasizing about children being burned in fire to fantasizing about children, in other ways. So in my view, all of the abuse, it's not a bug, it's a feature. So how are we tortured in hell according to the pre-conciliar Roman Catholic Church? We are tortured in hell with worms. We are tortured in hell with fright. We are tortured in hell with hunger. We are tortured in hell with stench. The pre-conciliar Catholic Church teaches that there is an awful stench in hell. We have in the Bible fire and brimstone. Brimstone is sulfur. And so the Catholic theologians threw stench into hell. We are tortured by noise. We are tortured by darkness. I think the pre-conciliar Catholic Church also teaches that we are tortured by loneliness. Each man must suffer hell on his own. The striking devil, so in hell, the fiends, the devils will be striking you or punching you or kicking you or biting you. If they've claws, they'll be scrabbing you. So yes, hell is torturous, and it amazes me that Inspiring Philosophy has the audacity to say that hell is not torture, when this version of hell was taught really until the modern age, until it became indefensible. And so Inspiring Philosophy is now reinventing the Christian religion by reinventing hell. So let's address his short.
One of the biggest cons of Christianity is the myth of free will. You have the freedom to not believe in God, but if you do, then your soul is going to be tortured for eternity.
Yes, as Christopher Hitchens put it, it's, the gospel, the good news of salvation. It's, you've made me an offer I can't refuse. It's like the mafia don. He goes into the diner and says, yes, you have the free will not to pay my protection money, but if you exercise that free will, I break your fingers. The the free will argument is, you have the free will not to worship God, but if you refuse to worship God, then he's going to torture you in hell.
This is an oversimplification, and
it's not an oversimplification or a caricature. This is what the pre-conciliar Catholic Church taught for more than a millennium, for about 1500 years, and which Protestantism taught up till about the 1900s. And even today, there are traditional Catholics and fundamentalist Protestants who teach this exact same doctrine of hell. You're just trying to reinvent your own version of Christianity. And this is why I think that Michael Jones must be pushed back on a lot, because, as John Loftus put it, Christianity reinvents itself every 20 years. And in my view, inspiring philosophy, he is the 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 Bart of our generation. That there was a theologian called Karl Barth, and he reinvented Christianity in the 1950s. He called it neo-orthodoxy. Well, in my view, Michael Jones is reinventing Christianity again. It's like a neo-orthodoxy. So I think that this version of Christianity really needs to be nipped in the bud.
A caricature of the doctrine of hell.
It's not a caricature. The Roman Catholic Church doctrine of hell is it is torture. It is a pantomime of cruelty and wrath, a circus of cruelty.
It's not a torture chamber that God throws people into against.
According to the Roman Catechism, one is tormented in hell.
Their will. See this video for more.
Against their will. Who would want to go to such a place? Seriously, like, who would choose to go to such a place? Who would choose to go to a place in which your brain is boiling inside your skull like a teapot?
More. And also, there are good cases for other views of the afterlife, like.
Yeah, this is an apologetic tactic. It's like multiple choice apologetics. If you don't like eternal conscious torment, then there is universalism, and then there is annihilationism.
Universalism and annihilationism.
And I just want to speak about annihilationism. Captain Cassidy McGillicuddy spoke beautifully about this. Annihilationism is an extremely violent act. It only looks mild in comparisons to eternal conscious torment, and it's actually a crazy idea when one wraps his head around it. Like, I'm not an eliminative materialist, but even in eliminative materialism, when you die, there is a slim chance that these elements, the elements which made you up, might reform again one day in the future, and your consciousness might come back. But annihilationism in the Christian, and I think that Michael Jones holds to this, annihilationism in the Christian version, you are annihilated, but also it is guaranteed that you will never come into consciousness again. And that's just, try and wrap your head around that. And St. Thomas Aquinas actually argued that annihilationism, for this reason, is worse than the pains of hell. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I mean, the Christian version of annihilationism, you are annihilated and you will never, ever, 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 ever come back into consciousness. That is, I mean, that's a horror story. And also, to annihilate someone is the most violent act that a person can do. And your God is a person, and he annihilates you. That's just, I mean, that's an extremely violent act, and you're apologizing for a God who does such things. In my view, that's despicable. I mean, an annihilationist God is a despicable God. He's only slightly less despicable than the God of eternal conscious torment.
And can you make yourself believe in something that you don't believe in?
Yes, and inspiring philosophy, as is his wont, is going to misunderstand this. Apologetics is all about obtuseness, which I define as deliberate stupidity. So watch out here for some obtuseness or deliberate stupidity from Michael Jones. Now, imagine, this is a thought experiment. I'm going to steel man this atheist thought experiment. Imagine you rob a lamp and a genie springs out of the lamp, and he's actually a bad genie. He's not a good genie, because genies were usually evil spirits that were trapped inside bottles and lamps and things like that. So this genie says to you, you must force yourself to believe in underwater sea chickens, or I will kill your family. Now, can you force yourself to believe in underwater sea chickens? This is a beautiful example by Paulogia. A genie springs out of a bottle and he says, you must force yourself to believe in underwater sea chickens. And and because I'm a genie, I can read your thoughts. I can search your hearts and reins. If I perceive that you aren't sincerely believing in underwater sea chickens, then I'm going to kill your family. Now, could you make yourself believe in underwater sea chickens? No, you couldn't. So, and this is what he's trying to say, like, he's painting a picture here of doxastic involuntarism, a fancy philosophical term for really you can't choose what to believe in. Really, one involuntarily believes in stuff that he thinks is evident. We don't think that Yahweh and Jesus are evident, therefore we don't believe it. We are doxastic involuntarists. It is as impossible for us to believe in Yahweh and Jesus as it is impossible for us to believe in underwater sea chickens. Now, underwater sea chickens might very well exist, and even Richard Carrier would say this. Richard Carrier would say that every proposition, even the most stupid ones, have a negligible chance of being true. So there is a negligible chance that underwater sea chickens exist in the earth. According to Bayesian reasoning, we cannot say with 100% certainty that underwater sea chickens exist. They might very well exist. And, this genie, when he appears to us, he's actually getting us to believe in a true statement. However, even though this statement is true, it's not reasonable. It's not reasonable to believe in underwater sea chickens because there's no evidence that underwater sea chickens exist. And also, there is plenty of evidence that underwater sea chickens don't exist because, chickens are birds and birds can't live underwater. Birds need to breathe. So there is evidence against the existence of underwater sea chickens, and there is also evidence, there is no evidence that underwater sea chickens exist. Same with Yahweh and Jesus. They could exist, and I'd say this, it is very possible that Jesus Christ rose from the dead and is seated at the right hand of God the Father. That is extremely possible. However, in my view, there's no evidence that this is the case, and that there is plenty of evidence to the contrary, and thus it is reasonable for us not to believe in it. And I'm a doxastic involuntarist on this. I cannot force myself to believe in this stuff. Now, this stuff could be true, just as underwater sea chickens could be true, but I can't force myself to believe it. So if I die and I meet this God, is he going to send me to hell for not being able to believe in the Christian religion? I mean, this is a point that this man is obviously trying to make, but cue some obtuseness from Michael Jones' inspiring philosophy.
Obviously not, which is why I'm not an atheist.
Yeah. Okay.
Christians, what if it was decided that the Hindus were completely right and you needed to switch over to their polytheism? Would you suddenly be able to switch gears and not believe in Yahweh anymore and just start believing in their gods?
Well, by the standards of your own analogy, we would have to, because Hinduism would have been proven to be true, and we...
No, I don't think he said they're proven to be true. What if Hinduism was... He said Hinduism was decided to be true. Let's be generous. Let's say that it is true that the Hindu pantheon exists, but like underwater sea chickens, there is no evidence that the Hindu pantheon exists. Could you force yourself to give up Yahweh and worship Ganesh and Shiva and all those gods? I don't think you could. I mean, you are a doxastic and voluntarist when it comes to the Hindu pantheon. Perhaps it could have been more elegantly phrased in the TikTok video, but I'm sure Michael Jones, can get his meaning, or at least steelman what he was trying to say.
We would all believe it.
And one of the biggest cons of Christianity is the myth of free will.
Okay, so that's over. Hopefully, the sound has recorded.